Anita had always been the kind of woman who believed in people. Her smile could light up a room, and her gentle nature made it easy for others to draw close. From childhood, she was taught that love meant loyalty and trust, so when she met Amira in university, she opened her heart freely. They shared meals, whispered secrets, and spoke of their dreams late into the night. To Anita, Amira wasn't just a friend, she was a sister in every way that mattered. Together, they planned a future filled with purpose and success. As the years went by, their bond only grew stronger. Anita got her first job at a creative agency and immediately helped Amira find her footing too. She believed friendship meant rising together, never competing. She celebrated Amira's small wins like they were her own, and every time Amira faced a challenge, Anita was the one she called, sometimes at midnight, sometimes in tears. Anita never hesitated, she was always there, but slowly, shadows began to form in places where light once lived. Amira began comparing their achievements. She noticed that Anita was more loved at work, that her voice carried influence, that people respected her deeply. A quiet jealousy began to whisper in her heart, one that she tried to silence, but couldn't. And while Anita continued to love and trust, Amira started seeing her as competition. One afternoon, as Anita shared an exciting opportunity she had received, a major promotion, Amira's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. In that moment, something shifted. What Anita saw as a victory for both of them, Amira saw as proof that she was being left behind. What Anita celebrated, Amira resented. And without realizing it, Anita's greatest confidant had begun to turn her heart away. Jealousy rarely announces itself. It creeps in quietly, often wearing the face of friendship. Amira began distancing herself slowly, answering Anita's calls less, avoiding shared lunches. When Anita asked if something was wrong, Amira brushed it off, blaming stress and deadlines. But behind the excuses, her resentment deepened. In meetings, Amira began subtly discrediting Anita's ideas. When others praised Anita's creativity, Amira would smile politely but find ways to plant doubt. Anita is great, but sometimes she takes on too much. It seemed harmless at first, but soon the whispers spread. Anita noticed a change. Colleagues who once confided in her became cold. The environment that once celebrated her now felt heavy with silent judgment. Still, she couldn't believe Amira could do such a thing. She convinced herself it was all in her mind. "She's my friend," Anita told herself. "She could never hurt me." But betrayal often comes from the ones we'd never suspect. One morning, Anita arrived at work to find a project she had built from scratch, months of effort, credited entirely to Amira. Her boss congratulated Amira publicly. And when Anita tried to speak up, Amira looked at her with calm eyes and said, "You must have misunderstood." It was like a blade through her chest. Not because of the stolen work, but because of the person behind it. That day, Anita realized something sacred had been broken. Trust, once betrayed, doesn't just crack, it shatters. Betrayal doesn't end in the act itself. It lingers. It replays in your mind like a song you never wanted to hear. Anita went home that night and sat in the dark. Her thoughts raced. What did I do wrong? Was I too open? Too kind? Too trusting? She replayed every conversation, every shared moment, every kindness she had offered. None of it made sense. Her heart was heavy, not just from loss but from confusion. Amira had not only taken her idea but also spread rumors about her, painting her as manipulative and selfish. People began avoiding Anita. Invitations stopped. Doors she once walked through confidently now seemed locked. In just a few weeks, everything she had built was stripped away. She tried to pray, but her voice trembled. "God, why? Why would you let this happen? I loved purely. I trusted deeply. Why does goodness always seem to suffer?" But heaven was silent. And sometimes, silence is the hardest answer to receive. Still, within the silence, something deeper was forming, an unseen strength, a quiet endurance that only pain can teach. Annie didn't know it yet, but this was not the end. It was the breaking that would one day make her whole again. Days turned into weeks, and the world around Anita grew colder. The office felt strange now. The same walls that once echoed her laughter now held only whispers and stares. She stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria, preferring instead to sit alone by the window with a quiet tear rolling down her cheek. The betrayal replayed in her mind, not because she wanted it to, but because she couldn't turn it off. Betrayal isn't just about losing someone, it's about losing a part of yourself in the process. She prayed, but heaven seemed still. "God, where are you?" she whispered late one night. "I did everything right. I loved, I gave, I forgave. Why would you allow this?" She waited for a voice, a sign, anything, but all she felt was silence. It's easy to trust God when the blessings are loud, but what about when his silence feels like rejection? In that silence, though, something unseen began to grow. Pain stripped her of her illusions, it forced her to see that her worth didn't come from people's approval. It came from something deeper. A few days later, a gentle voice, not audible, but felt, settled in her heart, "I am still here." It didn't solve everything, but it was enough to make her breathe again. That night, she made a decision: she would not let pain make her bitter. She didn't know what God was doing, but she chose to believe he was doing something. Sometimes faith isn't loud, it's just choosing not to give up, even when you don't understand. Healing doesn't happen in crowds, it happens in wilderness. Anita found herself stripped of almost everything she once relied on: her reputation, her job, her friendships. Even Amira's face haunted her dreams. But this empty season began to teach her something powerful. Sometimes God allows isolation not to punish you, but to prepare you. Each morning, Anita started journaling her prayers. At first, they were filled with questions: why me? What did I do? But slowly, they turned into whispers of surrender: help me forgive. Heal me. Show me what this pain is teaching me. The more she wrote, the lighter her heart became. She began noticing little mercies: the neighbor who always greeted her kindly, the sunset that painted her window in gold, the quiet peace that came each time she whispered, "I trust you." Meanwhile, God was working behind the scenes. A new company had seen Anita's creative work, the same one Amira had claimed. They had followed her old portfolio online and reached out, asking for a meeting. At first, Anita hesitated, she was still afraid to believe again. But deep down, she knew, grace was calling her out of hiding. By the end of that week, she walked into that meeting with trembling hands but a renewed spirit. It was as though heaven was whispering, "Your story is not over yet." The meeting went better than Anita expected. The company's director was deeply impressed by her ideas and her authenticity. "We've been looking for someone like you," he said. "Not just creative, but grounded, humble, real." They offered her a position even higher than the one she had lost. Anita could barely hold her tears. For the first time in months, joy returned to her eyes. That night, she knelt beside her bed and wept, not from sorrow, but gratitude. "God, I didn't see you working, but you never stopped," she cried. "Even when I felt forgotten, you were writing something new." She realized then that God's silence wasn't absence, it was strategy. He was removing her from the wrong environment to plant her where she could flourish freely. As she settled into her new job, she noticed how peaceful it was. The team was kind, supportive, and genuinely celebrated her gifts. It was everything her old workplace wasn't. Each day felt like a gentle reminder: what was taken unjustly can be restored abundantly. Sometimes, blessings don't come with trumpets, they come quietly, disguised as new beginnings. And Anita was finally beginning to see, the betrayal didn't break her. It redirected her. It took Anita a long time to realize that anger is a silent poison. It doesn't hurt the one who wronged you, it hurts you. Every time she remembered Amira's betrayal, her chest tightened. Sometimes she would be smiling during the day, then one memory would flash across her mind and her joy would disappear. The past had a way of stealing her present. One evening, as she was journaling, her eyes fell on an old note, one that reminded her of the laughter she once shared with Amira. Tears welled up. She had every reason to stay angry, but she also knew anger wasn't healing her, it was keeping her stuck. In that quiet moment, Anita made a decision that would change everything. She took a deep breath and wrote, "I forgive you." At first, it felt strange. Forgiveness didn't mean what Amira did was right. It meant Anita was choosing peace over pain, freedom over bitterness. She whispered to herself, "You don't have to carry this anymore." And as she said it, something shifted inside her, like a heavy stone being rolled away. The days that followed felt lighter. Anita didn't forget what happened, but the memory no longer controlled her. She could finally think of Amira without feeling her stomach twist. Forgiveness didn't erase the betrayal, but it erased the power it had over her heart. And that was how Anita knew she was truly healing, when her heart could remember without hurting. Life began to unfold in ways Anita never expected. Months after she forgave Amira, a quiet strength began to grow inside her. She didn't rush anymore. She didn't try to prove her worth or fight to be seen. She simply became steady, calm, and focused. And in that calm, doors began to open. One morning, she received an unexpected call from a woman who had seen her artwork online. The woman was deeply moved by Anita's paintings. Every piece told a story of pain, beauty, and hope. What Anita once painted to release her emotions now began to heal others. Soon, she was invited to display her collection at a community exhibition themed Beauty from Brokenness. On the day of the exhibition, Anita stood quietly beside her paintings, watching people pause and reflect. Some smiled, others wiped tears from their eyes. For the first time, she saw how her pain had become a bridge, connecting her story to the hearts of strangers. It was in that moment she realized that betrayal didn't destroy her, it redirected her. What was once her weakness had become her witness. Weeks later, Anita received an email from an international art foundation offering her a fellowship. Her name began appearing in places she never imagined. People were drawn to her authenticity, her calm, and the raw honesty in her work. What she had once lost in tears, God returned with grace, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Years passed. Anita had grown into a woman of quiet wisdom and grace. The scars of betrayal no longer bled, they told stories now. Her art had reached thousands of hearts across borders, and she had learned that peace wasn't found in revenge, but in release. One afternoon, while hosting a workshop for young creatives, Anita noticed a familiar face among the participants. Her heart paused. It was Amira. Older, weary, and visibly humbled. The confident girl Anita once knew was gone. In her place sat a woman whose eyes carried regret. After the class, Amira approached slowly. Her voice trembled. "Anita, I didn't expect you'd even look at me. I came here today because I heard about your work. I wanted to see what grace looks like." Anita smiled softly. Grace isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without bitterness. Amira broke down in tears, confessing how guilt had haunted her all these years, how chasing fame had left her empty, and how every success felt meaningless without peace. Anita didn't say much. She simply reached out, offering a quiet hug. In that silence, forgiveness became flesh. There were no apologies grand enough, but there was understanding, and that was enough. As they parted, Amira whispered, "Thank you for not hating me." Anita smiled, "You taught me one of life's hardest lessons, that sometimes people break you, not because they're evil, but because they're lost. And when you heal, you help them find their way back." Months later, Anita stood on a stage at an international art conference, sharing her journey. The audience listened in awe as she spoke, not like a victim, but like a vessel. "Every betrayal," she said, "is an invitation to rise higher, to see clearer, and to love deeper." As she looked across the crowd, Anita saw not faces, but souls, people carrying their own wounds, searching for hope. And she knew that her story was no longer just hers. It belonged to every heart that had been broken and wondered if healing was possible. When the applause ended, she closed her eyes and whispered, "What once hurt me now helps others. What once broke me now builds me." Her heart was at peace. She had learned that healing doesn't erase the past, it transforms it. The woman who was once betrayed had become a voice of light in a world that often breaks quietly. Moral lessons from the story: betrayal is not the end, it's a turning point. Sometimes, what feels like destruction is redirection toward purpose. 2. Forgiveness sets you free. Holding onto pain chains you to the past, releasing it allows your heart to breathe again. 3. Grace is strength. True power is not in revenge, but in rising without resentment. 4. Pain can become your platform. When you allow God to heal you, your scars become testimonies that touch lives. 5. Every ending carries a seed of new beginning. Sometimes, you lose people so you can find yourself. 6. Not all who hurt you are evil, some are broken. Healing teaches you compassion for those who once wounded you. 7. Your story matters. Even in silence, your healing speaks loudly to those who are still in pain.